supply chainers, wherever you are in the world. This is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey with you today. Are you ready? Let's talk supply chain. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Thoughts and Coffee. I am back from a week of vacation. We had some fun. I went to Epic at Universal, Florida, and that was great. I mean, a little bit of long lines. I think I spent 4.5 hours in line for 2 rides, but we got it done, and I got the Harry Potter one done, and I'm very happy about that. So highly recommend going to do that. My name is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey. I'm the founder and host of Let's Talk Supply Chain, as well as the Blended podcast and founder of the Blended Pledge. And we couldn't have this show without our show sponsor, and that is the Secret Society of Supply Chain, which is our membership group. We have that group, and then we also have our Woman in Supply Chain Connections membership group. And I want to give a shout out to our newest members. So our newest members for Secret Society of Supply Chain is Sunny Kumar, Stephen Young, Augustine Hariage. I hope I got that wrong and I didn't disappoint. And then we've got some newest members of our Woman in Supply Chain Connections, Jerry-Ann, Angela Woody, and Meg Witchern. Thank you so much for joining us and welcome to the community. We can't wait to see you in there. All right. I think it's Fleet Maintenance Week here at Let's Talk Supply Chain, because not only do we have Trace here today from TSG Fleets, but we also have a LinkedIn Live coming up on Thursday to talk about it as well. And you're not going to want to miss any of that. But before we bring up Trace, let's talk about what's happening at Let's Talk Supply Chain. So we've got a brand new episode. Now, this came out on July 2nd, but I wanted to bring it back into this episode because this has everything to do with what we're talking about today. And if you haven't heard of Circle K Pro, you're going to want to go and check out episode 478 because it might surprise you what you're missing out on. So go and check out episode 478 and see what's happening over at Circle K Pro and how they can help you with your drivers, your fleets, etc., etc. All right, we've got also a brand new episode that came out yesterday, episode 480, and this is with Reform. Now, they talk about, Omar comes onto the episode or onto the show and talks about how they take data in PDF that would take you 450 hours and they take that down to 40 minutes. That's right. He gives all sorts of examples of how they are helping companies across supply chain with their data and turning it into a time saver. So go and check that out. It's episode 480, wherever you listen to the show. Highly recommend you go and listen to that episode. All right. Again, Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern. I don't know what you're doing, but I hope that you are joining us for this. Even if you can't attend live, click the attend button. We will send you the link to this. Trace and I are going live for the second time this week, and we're talking about unifying your fleet, streamline operations, cut costs, deliver on time. I want to make sure that you are there and not miss out on any of the insights that Trace is going to be sharing with us. And then next Thursday, I'm going to be going live at 1 p.m. Eastern with the team over at RF Gen, and we're going to be talking about how to build a resilient supply chain. Now, Tatiana was recently on Thoughts and Coffee. We talked about some of these strategies, but we're going to do an even deeper dive next Thursday. So even if you can't attend live, click the attend button and we would love to see you there. We'll also send you the link even if you can't attend live. So make sure to click that attend button. What else is happening? Well, we are hosting the first ever Pickleball Slam at IANA Expo in Long Beach on September 15th. So if you are going to IANA Expo as an exhibitor, as an attendee, we want to make sure that you join us on September 15th because more business is happening on the pickleball court than on the golf course these days. And we want to be part of that. So click the link, join up as a team. Even if you're local in Long Beach and in supply chain, come and join us, sign up as a team. We've also got some sponsorship opportunities as well. All right. I think it's now time to bring up our guest for today. Hello, Trace. How you doing?
Good. How are you, Sarah?
Good. I think it's a little bit early for you. I don't know what's been happening lately, but I've had everybody from the West Coast and asking them to get up super early to come on Thoughts and Coffee?
Well, it's 7, I guess, right? So that's not that early, especially in our business. I mean, everybody's here way before that. I'm usually the last one here, and that's probably not a good thing to say as the owner, but drivers are starting their day, way before that. They start at 3 or 4 a.m. and the rest of the team, the shop and the people that work here 24/7, their shifts
That's
start.
true.
Yeah.
That is very true. This business does not
It does
stop.
not sleep. Yes,
It does not
24/7,
sleep.
365. Yep.
That's right. So for anybody who's watching and listening, make sure to put in the comments where you are watching and listening from. We want to know. I want to put you on the screen, give you a shout out. And plus, if you like the conversation today, I want to see some fire emojis in the comments as well. We like our fire emojis here at Thoughts and Coffee. All right, Trace, for anybody who doesn't know who you are, tell us who you are and what you do.
I'm Trace Haggard. I started and own TSG Fleet, and we are a one-stop shop for large fleets for wheeled and stacked storage. I know I need to explain what that means. So basically, a parking lot for logistics to some degree. For major fleets, and we also offer maintenance and repair services here on our facility or facilities here in Southern California and Texas. And we partner with our clients and customers to basically make sure they're always running and they always have access to major transportation corridors, and we make sure their uptime for their fleet stays consistent. So that's what we do.
Awesome. I love that. I want to give a shout out over to Chisimo. Hopefully I did not decimate that name. Watching from Malawi, Africa. We've got a couple of people. We've got Godfrey from Kenya. We've got Chisimo from Malawi as well. Welcome. And we've got a bunch of people watching. Tim from Kansas City, Camilo from Colombia watching as well. All right, let's get to our poll of the week. So we ask everybody a question every single Wednesday morning across the Let's Talk Supply Chain LinkedIn page because we want to know what's top of mind for you. Now, this question came from Trace and his team over at TSG Fleets, and we wanted to know a little bit more about what your top strategy is for managing rising fleet maintenance costs in 2025. And we're going to be talking about that a little bit later on in the show because it's kind of one of those things that you need to know around fleet maintenance in 2025. So we had almost 40 votes on this one. 44% of you said stronger supply chain or supplier partnerships. 33% of you said predictive maintenance tech. 21% of you said outsource to third parties. Now, Trace, why did you pick this question? And what do you think of the results?
I picked the question because, it's kind of a trick question, right? Because, outsourcing to third parties and stronger supplier partnerships to me are almost the same, one and the same, because I think if you own a huge fleet, you can't be in every market at the same time, right? I mean, I think there's certain markets where certain fleets are very well established. They even have brick and mortar. They have a significant employee presence, and they do their own storage and maintenance and repair. And I think there's there's some markets that, aren't as well covered. And so you need a strong supplier network in that sense. And, in some corners of the world, it's not economically feasible to have brick and mortar and your own employees in that market. So you do need to outsource. So I was just curious if, that was, going to be the reply we saw from people that are running fleets out there. And I'm always curious, we do most of our tech in-house. We don't buy anything off the shelf, so to speak. So, I think our dispatch system for our trucks, it is an off the shelf. But other than that, like our yard management system and our maintenance and repair, system, all that is pretty custom made. So I was wondering, are people still, relying heavily on tech? And that's the new, it just started hearing it in the last 6 to 12 months, is predictive maintenance tech. I don't know any brands yet or any softwares, but I see it a lot in articles and discussions, so I wanted to see how prevalent it was. And apparently I don't know if that's because, oh, that sounds cool, we got to have predictive maintenance tech because, tech always saves money. I don't know, or it's, people know more about it than I do. So
yeah. Well, it's 1/3 of the people who voted on this, and
yeah,
almost half said stronger supplier partnerships. So
yeah,
in alignment, kind of, I think, with what you were thinking, outsourcing to third parties. I mean, that's always been something that we've kind of done in supply chain, especially if they're a smaller business as well,
oh,
right?
totally.
And so I think it kind of aligns with what you were looking for. And so I'm so glad that we were able to ask that question and get those results. Now, before we get into some of the articles that we're going to cover today, and let me tell you, we've got some great articles for you because we're going to be talking about a cargo theft around Nintendo Switches that
Oh
cost
yeah.
$1.4 million. That's a lot of money. But we're also going to be talking about what you need to know about fleet maintenance, which is then going to drive the conversation that we're going to have on Thursday as well. So lots to talk about, lots to think about. But before we do that, I usually like to ask our guests about a market update. I mean, you're talking to a lot of people, you're talking to a lot of customers, you're talking to a lot of organizations.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think is sort of top of mind for everybody? What's everybody thinking, or what should everybody be thinking about right now?
It's interesting. I should have gone back and listened to the last time that we talked. If there was a recording out there, because I feel like I might be repeating myself. And,
That's
and
okay.
I
We
think
all need.
I think you can also go to other sources. I think the bottom was hit, so to speak, in the freight market, and I don't think we've completely started making like a steep climb out of it. I think it's one of those times where, and this might just be me always looking at the glass half full. Like, I think it's been almost flat to some degree. I mean, the customers that I'm talking to, mostly domestic freight companies, both on the, consumer product dry side and refrigerated, they're doing a little bit better than last year, right? Which doesn't mean they're doing better than 2020 or to 2022. Like, if you go back in freight cycles, and I think it was 2016 or 18, one of those 2 years where every year after that, you can't compare year on year based
Right.
on that year, right?
Mhm.
If you subtract, 2 or 3 of those years in the last 2 decades out of the cycle, it wouldn't be as bad as a picture. I do know that the people I'm talking to, they're doing better than they were 6 to 12 months ago.
Awesome.
Those freight volumes are up. I think they'd like to see more rates. That's going to be, capacity. And I'm optimistic. It's one of those quiet times in the middle of it all where usually I like to tell everybody, okay, get ready. Like, something's good's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to be an increase in freight volume, or people are going to start wanting to do more work on their fleets because of an increase in freight volume. Something good's going to happen usually when you get these prolonged lulls where it's the market's not down, but it's not up. It's kind of sustaining itself. So I think something good is on the horizon. I think there's some things that economically, if all the stars align, we might see a significant boost, in just consumer spending in the near future. Everybody's going to get a tax break, and those people that get that tax break are going to go spend that money. That's the American way. So hopefully that is the shot that we need to get this thing over the hump. I also think, unfortunately, there's some fleets out there of significant size that probably still have to go out of business. They've been hanging on, living off, too much credit for too long, and they'll probably not make it through the year or the next 12 to 18 months. And that'll open up a lot of capacity for other fleets, right?
So I think we're going to see a lot of change, is what you're
Exactly.
saying. We're going to see some good change.
I don't want to be a doomsayer, so I should go back and say maybe they won't go bankrupt. Maybe they'll get, acquired, right? And then,
or reduce their fleet, or
yes. Well, I think fleet reduction is
maybe
going to happen, which we're probably going to talk about in a second, because no one's been adding to their fleet for 2 years, right? There's been
Yeah.
no significant acquisition from a truck or a trailer or a container
Yeah.
side.
And I just want to give a shout out to Peter. I see your question. If we don't get to it today, I'm going to tag Trace to make sure that he does answer that. But maybe we'll also answer that during our LinkedIn Live on Thursday, because I think it's a really great question. And I want to give a shout out to Amrit from Toronto. He gave us our first fire emoji. Remember, if you like the conversation, I want to see some fire emojis in the comments. All right, let's get to our first article. Now, I don't know if any of you saw this in the news. I mean, this was back in June, but there was a heist, and they think that it was an inside job within supply chain of 2,810 Nintendo Switches, equaling $1.4 million. Now, they're not sure exactly where it happened, but they went missing at a truck stop. And this article goes on to talk about how cargo theft is up 27% in 2024, with an average of $202,000 per theft. And they are saying that other threats have also spiked 430%, which is crazy. They also go on to talk about how companies are looking to use GPS, and it helps with logistics, but the risk of a GPS is sometimes if they can get access to it, the thieves know where the cargo is. All right, Trace, what did you think of this particular article? Cargo thefts going up. I know you work with a lot of companies with fleets, lots of trucks, lots of drivers. What do you think about this?
It's very prevalent. You could have picked you probably had up to 3 or 4 articles in 1 week, every week to choose from. Everything that I follow, you're constantly seeing on a weekly basis, multiple articles about cargo theft right now. And I think we even talked about it a year ago, as, when freight recessions deepen and rates go down, right? So the driver's making less, then there's more of a chance that there's cargo theft, maybe an inside job, right? Because that's another way that the driver gets paid, unfortunately, by stealing the freight he's hauling or she's hauling. I think this is something very prevalent. I also own a trucking company, ISG, and I won't say who the customer is, but we were doing a load that was supposed to go to Phoenix, and then we randomly got an email saying, and it was said, it had the @customer.com and said that they were rerouting that load to LA instead of Phoenix, from where we picked it up. And luckily, we said, okay, the dispatch relayed the message to the driver rerouted it because he was just finishing loading the freight here in Southern California. And when he got there, he's like, this isn't right. So he immediately called the office, and they called the customer, and the customer goes, no, that's supposed to go to Phoenix, and so we realized right then and there that, that was, wrong, which is one of the way cargo thefts happen. And then, so unfortunately for the driver, he had to stay there while the police came, and the police didn't come like they were writing a parking ticket. They came, guns drawn and ready for whatever was going to happen. And anyways, long story short, that was thwarted, and the load ended up going to Phoenix the next day, and everything was okay, and the bad guys went to jail.
But I think it's important to note that they're getting smarter.
Oh yeah,
right. They're using a bunch of different avenues to be able to figure out how to get their hands on that freight. And in this particular instance, they talked about how it was 8 to 10 pallets of Nintendo Switches. Like, that's a lot of cargo. That takes planning, it takes equipment, and it means that somewhere along the way, the supply chain information was possibly leaked. So highly recommend you go check out that article, because it does talk about what happened, how it happened, how they think it could have happened, so that you can think about how you can protect your freight and talk to your partners about how they're helping to protect your freight as well. Now, I want to get to the second article, because this leads into what we're going to be talking about on Thursday. And this is what you need to know about fleet maintenance. Now, this goes into 9 different things that you need to think about when you think about fleet maintenance. And so, Trace, when you brought this article to our attention, what were sort of the top three that stuck out for you?
I mean, so the top three are, technician shortages, I think, and then, maintenance costs rising and unplanned downtime. I think those kind of go hand in hand. And, the other one is regulatory, right? That's constantly changing. And we recently had, since January, we had a significant change, especially in California, related to emission standards for trucks and everything else related to, diesel powered units. So I think that, I think regulatory is one of the things that a lot of people had front of mind up until this year. I think now that kind of takes a back seat in terms of a priority. And I think, now, something that, when we're talking to fleets, their big concern is technician capacity. Do you have enough diesel technicians? Do you have enough trailer mechanics to support all the fleets? Because that, the average or the mean age for that person, or that labor category, continues to go higher, right? Just
Right.
like the driver mean age is continuing to get older, and it's a skill set that we're really, we're not, it's not as popular, right, to become a mechanic or a truck driver as it was back in the day. So what we're doing here specifically for technician shortages is, we're bringing people in, whether they've had any trade skills training or not, and we kind of start them out and let them kind of grow into a role in the shop. And then if they're into the refrigeration side of the business, or just the diesel side, or maybe just structural, then we try and help them get certifications related to that role. So we're trying to do it organically. I think it's the best way to tackle the technician shortage.
Well, and they talk about how the skilled technician shortage, especially for EVs. And I think, Peter, what we'll do is we'll get to your question right after we finish on this article. A couple of the things that surprised me was that they're talking about older vehicles in service for longer, which means that they require more maintenance, which means you have to have a maintenance schedule, or, like you said, some sort of predictive maintenance technology to really give you an idea of when it's time to take that vehicle in. I think the other thing that they talked about was maintenance costs going up and the specialized parts. Like, if we are starting to go to EV trucks, then we're looking at specialized parts. We're also looking at specialized skilled technicians. You're talking about skilled technicians for regular trucks.
Yes.
Well, now we're going into the possibility of EV, and what does that look like as well? And then I think the other one that really struck it for me was cybersecurity, because fleets are more connected. I was at a cybersecurity conference a couple of years ago, and they talked about, or they actually showed us on a truck, how somebody could actually get into a truck and mess with whatever they wanted to mess with on a truck. And it was honestly super scary. And so I would assume, from a maintenance perspective, when you're talking to customers and you're talking about maintenance of a fleet, that's got to be super top of mind for everybody.
Yes, it is. I mean, I think that's going to be a hurdle. I think, right now, where we're at in Southern California, we're at the epicenter of the EV. I mean, when I'm here versus when I'm, not to pick on Missouri or Arkansas, but there, I don't see a lot even of an electric car as much as I see on a daily basis here in Southern California. And quite frankly, even the EV trucks, we have a customer, Navoya, and they're an EV fleet, right? So that's, but they're few and far between. But as those fleets become more prevalent, then we're just going to have to focus more on training our technicians that we have. I think it's a transition. They have to deal with electrical systems, just not in the at the capacity that they have to do for an electric truck.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a whole nother training curve that we're going to have to go through. We haven't done it yet. Fortunately, here, most of our truck guys in the shop are on the younger side. So I think there's always a correlation where, they adapt pretty easily. If they have to go learn, a new skill set, they're asking. Our guys are always asking. They'll send an email, hey, there's this course, about EV truck, whatever situation with maintenance and repair. And, I'm all for it. Like they should go and do all that, to get up to speed for that. So we can, once the fleets that we work with start, implementing their EV mandate that they may have, we can maintain their vehicles as well.
Well, and I love to hear that initiative, right? They're actually asking to go for these courses because they can see the future of what that looks like for their position and the skilled labor and what they need to know. So I'm going to forego our last article. I think we are going to put the link in the comments if you want to go and check it out. It's about tariffs and how it's going to reduce demand based on percentage of tariffs. So go and check that out. But I think we should ask Peter's question. I think we should get to Peter's question. Any thoughts on repair and maintenance for EV versus ICE? And I don't know what ICE is, so maybe if you know what that is, you can tell us. I have seen fleet cost assumption numbers of 17 cents a mile for EV compared to 23. Does it hold water in real life? Trace, what do you think?
Well, I think there's a lot that goes into comparing what an EV truck can do versus a traditional diesel truck, right? I've learned a lot from DeWoy, our customer here in Southern California. They can only go a certain distance, right? There's not enough infrastructure. So I mean, when you look at a 250 mile radius around where the truck convertible, there you go.
Thank you, Peter.
There you go. So like I was saying, so when you look at the EV truck model versus the traditional diesel truck model, yes, it's less expensive. I mean, look, think about a golf cart. I don't know if everybody can relate to that, right? But if you have an electric golf cart and you have a gas powered golf cart, your electric golf cart might sit in your garage and charge, and you're going to have no issues for several years. With all the components that goes with, petroleum, so fuel or diesel or gas powered engine, you're going to have issues. I mean, it doesn't run. They're two different systems, so you're always going to have a significantly higher cost per mile on your traditional diesel truck. Now, what can a diesel truck do that an electric truck can't do? So in our fleet and how we partner with Navoya and stuff, we leave here and we go to Bakersfield and come back every day. Well, our diesel truck can do that, no issues. So if you're familiar with the geography, you got to go over the Los Angeles mountain range to get to the Central Valley, to where all that happens. Well, an electric truck pulling, a loaded container or trailer there and back or one way, it's got to stop there and charge, right? So the best charging station, I think, is still an hour or two of time, right? And that run, it's an 8-hour run. And you can only drive for, you can only have your wheels turning for 10 hours. You got to, so then it's like, okay, well, if he gets laid over because he's in an EV, you add a day's cost to that route. So it's tough. It's, when you look at the maintenance cost, yes, your EV is going to have a much lower maintenance and repair cost than a traditional diesel truck. But your EV vehicle is going to have to be in a very tight niche of business that it's, in order for it to make the same profitability that a traditional diesel truck will make, because for that same route. And so, when we have loads to cover, this is more, we also have a trucking division. So my experience with that is answering this question. So that's what you have to consider. If we have an electric truck, it's probably not going to make a run to Bakersfield or Fresno from here and back. You don't even want to take the chance because it has to charge. That's without a question. It's going to have to charge somewhere in that route. And a diesel truck's not. A diesel truck, depending on the size of its tanks, it most likely will go there and come back without even going to the fuel station.
Well, and we're going to answer all of these questions and more during our LinkedIn Live, and the link is in the comments on Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern. If you can't attend live, click the attend button. We'll send you the recording, but we want all of your questions like this on Thursday. Trace, thank you so much for joining me here for Thoughts and Coffee, and I can't wait to see you for the rest of Fleet Maintenance Week at Let's Talk Supply Chain.
Last note on the theft. We got sidetracked because I talked about my personal experience, but park your freight in a secured lot.
Yes.
with fences and lights and people, that's the place to be, not in a dirt lot behind a truck stop. Don't do that.
Okay, let's not do that. All right. So I'll see you on Thursday, Trace. I'll see all of you on Thursday. And thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.